Check the official time. Oh, it's official. It's time to start. Okay, it's that time, and we don't want to run out of time and not finish this material. This is going to be the second week, so a lot of good things to talk about when it comes to this particular section of the book of Proverbs. So let's get started on here soon. Paul Glenn's going to lead us in prayer, so let's bow as he does that.
Thankful for another day you've given us. We're thankful for the time we have together tonight to come together and study your word. And we're thankful for the talents that Steve has to lead us in our discussion. We come before you tonight with heavy hearts with the passing of two great servants of yours, God. We ask that you be with the Rushmore family with the passing of Bonnie. And we ask that you be with the Walker family with the passing of Todd. We know that they will be greatly missed by not just their families, but your kingdom. We ask that you be with those families and their friends and comfort them as only you can. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Yeah. The wisdom of Proverbs, the various segments of our life, what we do, our choices that we make. And we started last week talking about wisdom and money. And this is one of the verses that I begin with because I think this is key. That's why I've got a little star by it there. If we could remember this, we would do well if we did not remember all of the other verses. Remove falsehoods and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches. Feed me with the food allotted to me, lest I be full and deny you and say, who is the Lord? Or lest I be poor and steal in the name of my God. A tremendous, valuable prayer. If we will pray, Lord, just give me my allotment. Give me enough that I will not have so much to forget you or have so little that I act foolishly out of need. Give me just the right amount, Lord. And if we'd all pray that about money and lots of other things too, we would do well. Now, in another paraphrase last week, we also have this quote, and I have paraphrased, but Sister June told us it's not how much or how little money you have, it's how you obtain it and how you use it. Now, those are not exact words, but that's pretty much what she said to us. And that's a good summary too, I believe. It's a balanced thing. It's not the amount. You can have much or you can have little, and still you may have obtained it the right way, the wrong way, and you may use it the right way or the wrong way. So that's got a star by it too. Let's remember that as we continue with number 2 of wisdom and money. Beginning with about Proverbs chapter 18, if you're going through here, we talked about this just at the close last week, but we were running out of time, so I want to start there this week and move forward through the rest of the book of Proverbs. The rich man's wealth is his strong city and like a high wall in his own esteem. We noticed last week that we could understand this either as written or in a sense sarcastically, that the rich man's wealth is really, it takes the place of God, and it is this is meant to be sarcastic. It's a high wall. It protects him in his mind. That's all he needs, and he forgets God. Or it can mean that properly used, riches are valuable, and they can be like a strong city. They can keep you out of some dangers and be used profitably and way. Either way has true principles to it. A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before great men. Again, that can be taken just as it is written, or it could be sarcastic. A man could use his wherewithal, whatever he owns, whatever money he has, in a positive way to make room for other men, to get in the presence of great men for good reasons. Or he could use his possessions in a sense of bribery, which of course would be the wrong way. Poor man uses entreaties, the rich answer roughly. So the poor man has to beg. That's just kind of a fact of life. But sometimes the rich man roughly because of his riches, he doesn't care what anybody else thinks. He doesn't have to beg somebody to listen to him, to see his way of thinking. So he doesn't have to make entreaties or pleas like the poor man does. And sometimes this can cause hardness of heart. The reason they answer roughly. And I thought about, since the book of Proverbs deals so often with wisdom is foolishness, I thought about the rich fool that we read about in Luke chapter 12, who, as he had all that he had, could come up with nothing better than to build bigger and better barns. And God himself called him a fool because of that. He had gotten a hardened heart. I think of another rich man, and even though Luke doesn't call him a fool very much that way in Luke chapter 16, and he was the one who lived sumptuously while laying right outside his gates, obviously someone who had to be within his ability to see and to notice. He wasn't hard-hearted, was poor Lazarus, right? And when the time came to leave this earth, they had different destinies. So he was a rich fool, even though the word is not used there. His heart had become hardened. So that's why possessions can be a great blessing or can be a deterrent for us, because they can cause our heart person to answer roughly, the wise man said. Okay, now we'll go on to new material as we move into chapter 19, still talking about wisdom and money, possessions, whatever you want to say. Wealth makes many friends, but the poor is separated from his friend. Now, let me ask you if any New Testament story comes to your mind when you hear that proverb. Wealth makes many friends, but the poor is separated from his friend. That's exactly what I was thinking of. The prodigal son went into a faraway country, wasted what he had in riotous living and friends to participate with you. But the poor is separated from his friend. When he ran out of money, he was to the point where he would eat pig's food. Then there was nobody else around that was really could be called his friend. That's the thing about money. Verse 6 of the same chapter, many entreat the favor of the nobility, and every man is a friend to one. Again, we have a situation where it could be conceivably in a positive sense, but probably we're talking about gifts in a negative sense here. It seems more likely the way it's worded. You could use gifts and seek favor from nobility for good reasons, but probably the wise in mind those who would give a gift, we would call it a bribe, in order to get nobility, someone in power, someone with authority, to do what they wanted them to do. And that's been around as long as men have and as long as government has been, and I suppose always will be, that possibility of getting one's way. And every man is a friend to the one who gives gifts. So it's sort of like you can buy friendship. Again, the word friendship in quotation marks, because it's not real friendship. Doesn't do things that are wrong for themselves or for their other friend. That's not friendship. But the world sort of thinks that is. So probably this is talking about using wealth to get what you want, regardless of what's right. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to give the gift. If what you wanted was right, you'll just wait for justice. He who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord, and he will pay back what he has given. So, New Testament story comes to mind when you read that one. He who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord. Something from Matthew 25 come to your mind? Sheep and the goats. It says, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. Naked and you clothed me. In prison, you visited me, and so forth. And the opposite of that, to those who did not do that, I was there and this, and you did not respond to it. Well, that's what came to my mind as I read this proverb. Well, he who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord. So when you do that, you're doing an act that God is pleased with. And as Jesus suggested in Matthew 25, it's doing it even to the least of these. It's like doing it unto him. And he will pay back what he has given. In other words, the Lord has a return on your so-called investment of mercy or compassion. The Lord said, I'll be taking care of you because you've done this for me by doing it for the poor, and I will respond in a positive way. And that's the statement of general truth that the wise man gives us there as we show compassion to the poor. Let's do a couple more, and then we'll stop for comments. Proverbs, take the garment of one who is surety for a stranger and hold it as a pledge when it is for a seductress. Now, this is drawing an interesting picture for us here because we've already seen that the wise man says being surety for someone's loan is not a good idea. Today, we often call it co-signing for a loan. You know, if he doesn't pay, I realize I'm obligated to pay too, so go ahead and give him the loan. Surety. And it was something that could be engaged in casually, rashly, and without a great deal of conscious thought. And the Proverbs tell us don't do that. And in this case especially, don't do that. Now, what did the Old Testament law in Exodus 22 say about taking someone's cloak for surety, for a loan? You give them something and you take their cloak. Remember what the rule was? No, that's Jesus. And when they take your coat, give them your cloak also. But what was the law of Moses as far as loaning, taking the cloak as collateral? By the end of the day, give it back. Why? Because that's all some folks had at night. That's all that some folks had to wrap themselves up in if they were poor, was that outer garment, that cloak. And so the law of Moses says, do not take his cloak and keep it overnight. You see that that's back to him. So generally it would just be best not to take for a loan, wouldn't it? But here's what the wise man says. If you've got somebody that wants you to co-sign for him, your surety, your backup on the loan, and he's going to deal with a stranger, or he's going to deal with an immoral woman, those two situations, you know, he's being foolish. Don't you be foolish too. And what you need to do is be sure that you have something to show for the debt, and so take the garment of the one who's that foolish, because probably you're not going to get your money. So don't be foolish. Of course, the ideal situation will be don't be a surety in the first place for somebody that has no more judgment than that, than to make a stranger or in dealings with a seductress. Don't do that. And if you do, just think ahead. I'm probably going to lose this deal, and so go ahead and take the garment. Okay. An inheritance gained hastily at the beginning will not be blessed. Now, as you read that, what do you think the sort of situation is for an inheritance gained hastily? What would you think of in a case like that? That's one very good situation, like the prodigal son. I don't want to wait till dad's gone. I want it right now. I want my third of the inheritance is what it would be, because he was the younger son. The elder son got a double portion. I want my third right now, and right in there. Now, that's hastily. That's dangerous. That's without experience, because if he had waited, and learned more from his father and his elder brother about responsibility and working and, how good he really had it, he might not have made the foolish decision that he made in Jesus' story. So an inheritance gained hastily. It might be gained hastily in other ways, but it comes without the, may come with what? Something less than integrity? Could you possibly gain an inheritance by some immoral behavior, immoral actions? One that's gained hastily that way, that's what a lot of people are looking for. Today we have the phrase, and I know you've heard this on television and movies, oh, this is going to be the big score. This is the big score. This is, and everything after this life is going to be good. If I just do this one thing, make this one accomplishment, get this one deal or this one inheritance, whatever it might be. This is the big score in life. Sometimes people jump into that hastily, without experience, without wisdom, without integrity. And what's going to be at the end? It won't be not be good, because it didn't start out being good in the first place. The Greeks had a proverb, went like this: no righteous man ever grew rich quickly. No righteous man ever grew rich quickly. In other words, righteous gain comes from slow, godly decisions, thought out. That's the pace which it comes from. This kind of inheritance or this kind of riches, when it comes to the end, there's going to be something that's not very pleasant. One more, and then we'll stop for comments. Getting treasures by a lying tongue, a fleeting fantasy. The fleeting fantasy. Some of the commentators have suggested that what he was really saying there is like it was a mirage, what we call today a mirage. In the desert where you see something far away. And of course, our picture of that is someone who's dying for water, and they're making their way through the desert, and they see the oasis there. Of course, they could see a number of things, under that influence, but the mirage is not really there, and just as quickly, you don't see it anymore. It's gone. A fleeting fantasy. And that may have been what he was thinking about. At any rate, we know what a fleeting fantasy is, don't we? It's a daydream, and then it's gone. Well, getting treasures by a lying tongue. That's what some people think they're going to do. That by improper, immoral, illegal means, they're going to make that big score. They're going to get that treasure. But it's like a mirage, a fleeting fantasy of those who seek what? Death? Now, do they really seek death? They don't know they are. That's what they're really seeking. They're seeking a dishonest, quick treasure. That's what they're seeking. But the wise man said, it's a mirage. It's going to bring them death, even though they don't realize it. Whoever shuts his ears to the cry of the poor will also cry himself and not be heard. A gift in secret pacifies anger, and a bribe back strong wrath. Well, we got two totally different ideas that go in two different directions here. First of all, let's talk about that first verse there, 13. Whoever shuts his ears to the cry of the poor will also cry himself and not be heard. Somebody turn to Luke 6, 37 and 38 real quick, if you would, and read that. Luke 6, 37 and 38. Somebody else be turning to James 2, 13, please. James 2, 13. If you've got Luke 6, 37 and 38, go ahead and read that real loud for us. What is the Lord's teachings as far as what we receive versus what we hand out to other people? If you give, you will receive. You shut your ears to the cry of the poor. There will come a time when you're going to cry out, And the Lord's going to say, I can't hear you. The Lord said, if you won't forgive, I'm going to forgive you, which is a powerful statement we all need to remember. Brother Darrell? Okay. Treat others as you would have them treat you, Matthew 7:12, certainly. And it's even more significant than when you think about, well, the Lord's going to mete out to me the way I mete out to my fellow man. And the same is true when it comes to compassion. And, we think about the little bit of money, paid it, and the Lord forgave him. And then he went out and found somebody. No, he owed a ton of money, couldn't pay it. The Lord forgave him. Then he went out and found the servant owed a little bit of money, and he took him by the throat and said, "You're going to pay it all, or you're going to debtor's prison." And Jesus says, if you can't do better than that, you don't understand the love of the Lord. You don't understand forgiveness. So that's the first part of the proverb here. And the second one's a little bit different. A gift in secret pacifies anger, and a bribe behind the back, strong wrath. Now, let me add this first. The word could also be interpreted just a gift. And so we have another one of those that depends on how you're interpreting this. In the first place, what words you use. If you're saying this as a negative phrase, which it may be, you put the word bribe in there. A gift in secret pacifies anger, and a bribe behind the back, strong wrath. You can accomplish, means you may get the results you want in appeasing somebody, or bribe should just be gift there. And in both those cases, Solomon is just saying, when you give to somebody, you can do a lot of good with that. You can help them not to be angry. You can bring down their level of wrath. And sometimes secret is the best way to do that, isn't it? Isn't it the case sometimes people could settle their differences a whole lot better if everybody else stayed out of it? Can I get an amen on that? Yeah. Over the years, I've noticed that with couples who are looking for counseling, having some difficulties of some kind, I find that if everybody else would quit trying to give them advice, which isn't good advice, they could probably work it out better by themselves with just a little bit of assistance and maybe somebody in between to help them communicate. A lot of times, good things done secretly are successful. So I believe that's also possibly what this could be. And instead of the word bribe, just insert the word gift there. Either one could translate the Hebrew word according to what I've read. So again, either principle is a good, viable principle. Okay, let me stop there because I don't want to do all the talking. Give you a chance to comment. Thoughts on any of these? Or not. We don't have to. Randy? I've never seen you at a stoplight, really. Yes, I'm glad. Oh, okay. Hey, now I'll stop for you. Well, I had this discussion with somebody within the last couple of weeks, so I'll tell you what I said. I asked a couple of questions. Let me see how I phrased it. Number one, Paul made it very clear to the Thessalonians, if a man will not work, neither shall he eat. The trouble is, how do we come to that determination? See, that's the trick. The other factor is being a good steward. It is impossible for me, and it's impossible for this congregation. Every poor person that we will come in contact with in the course of our lives. There's too many people out there that need things. Our ability to give there's a limit to it. We can say, well, I'm going to help everybody. I want to help everybody. Well, yeah, we want to help everybody. But can we help everybody? I don't believe we can. There's no end to it. But I'm not going to say, I'm not going to go beyond that. But anyway, those are the two things that I think of. I try to say now, is this something Paul would say, that person probably could be living, working for a living, and you could give what you're going to give him to somebody else who couldn't make a living if they wanted to. That's a question I ask. I don't have any easy answers for how you know that. Except I'm like you, when somebody's on the side of the road or a stoplight, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to use cases that I know are in need, and there's plenty of those. Pardon? If it's you or some other brother or sister, man, I'll pick you up and take you to Shoney's, get you something to eat. That's no problem. But that's the way I reason. Anybody else is welcome to comment. I call it compassionate stewardship. The Lord says, you be a steward, you be compassionate. You got to put the two together somehow. Jen? Okay. June has posed the question, in our country today, with all of the government that we have and opportunities to help people, can't most people be helped through those things that the government has? And it seems to me the answer to that would be yes. Me that, the person has other options, and maybe the individual case ought to be analyzed just a little bit before I put money in their hands that may or may not really help them to be a better person, live a better life, take care of themselves and their family. I see a hand back here. Okay, and that's true. They're both right. That's why I say compassionate stewardship. Everybody in the world begs for things. I mean, we got a world of people who beg for things. And we, as an individual, cannot meet every need that we're confronted with in the course of a week, a month, or a year. I believe the Lord wants us to use that in a way of, it's called good stewardship. Brother Howard? Brother Howard told some good stories there. I wish everybody could have heard all of them, but and most of us could probably tell stories like that. Many times, kind of negative ends to them. But what was I going to say? So focused on your stories. I wasn't thinking about what I was going to say next. His point is, it's difficult to know, and I say to everybody, you've got to make up your own minds how you're going to handle that situation. I can't tell you what to do. Nobody else can. I'm just telling you the factors. And Brother Howard mentioned cases there where it's been rather obvious that he just sort of got took, and it's difficult to obtain information sometimes. And so there's no one answer for solving it. But I told you the two things that I think about, and I give as much information as I can, and I don't give cash, ever. If somebody's hungry, I'll take them and feed them, no matter what they're trying to pull. If somebody's outside without a place to stay, and it's bitter cold outside, I'll see they get inside where it's warm. But beyond that, then I think it might be good to ask some questions. Okay, Brother Howard had his, and then okay. A lot of people feel that way. They'd rather err on the side of giving, and even if they don't have all the information. Yes, ma'am. Okay. And that's, that's a good philosophy. There's more things besides money, more important things than money. They're spiritual things, and that, of course, is our goal. We don't give to meet every need in the world. God didn't tell us to do that. God told us to take the gospel to the entire world. In the process, we have to be compassionate people. Okay, Roy? Russ, you offer to buy somebody food. They say, no, I need money. Or you offer to put gas in your tank. No, I need money, for whatever reason. It's not that original need anymore. You say, wait a minute here. not sure about this situation. But it's those other things that you aren't sure about sometimes that we struggle with. Okay, we're not going to get through any more Proverbs tonight. Go ahead, Ron. They went quickly. Yeah, just a few basic things. And as I say, there's some things that I think we don't have too much hesitation about as far as handing people when there's obviously a true need. It's those other things that we debate. I'm going to get back to you, Howard, or were you pointing to somebody else? Mhm. Okay, and again, that's what a lot of people feel. You know, I'd rather err on the side of mercy. If that's what you feel, that's why I would encourage nobody to give money because it can be easily abused. If they say I need a coat or a pair of shoes, I need a place to stay for the night, and you do that, that can't be abused really. But cash can. Yes, ma'am. Well, that's why we give Speedway gas cards that can't be traded for cash. We made sure of that. I guess you could sell it to somebody on the street. I mean, there's no way to protect everything. Roy? Well, certainly it's not, God's not going to hold you accountable for how they use any resources they have, if they give it to them or not. But I still go back to two things I would encourage everybody to think about, and that is stewardship and possible. You know, we can be too casual about it, I believe. That's why pulling up to an intersection, I'm not just going to stick my hand out. I'm just not going to do it. I know of too many cases verified where that's how they make their living. So I'm going to be a steward in another way. And if somebody else wants to do that, that's their decision. I saw a couple of hands. Dennis? Uh, Daryl? Well, you might or might not ever know it, what you did, but still, in my mind, I choose to find a little more information out. That's what I want to do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being a passionate stewardship is my answer. I see a hand. Steve? I think that's part of the stewardship that God expects us to keep in mind. And I think we can do a much better job, perhaps, sometimes than we do with that. Okay, I should have known this was going to. Okay, we're not done yet. Valita? Ask a few questions. Ask for a photo ID. Is that out? Is that ridiculous? You know, is that too? When you've had police officers tell you that they picked up people out here at these intersections asking for money and found hundreds of dollars in their pocket, and they've got a room over at one of these motels, and they're to get by. You have to say, is that good stewardship to hand them $1 or a $5 bill? So everybody makes their own decisions. I hope we've talked about some things that are helpful tonight. We still didn't get to a lot of Proverbs, so I'll think on that.